Gemar Tov. Attention is the profound gift we offer one another in sharing a moment of presence. When we allow ourselves to be fully present, we begin to notice whose voices are being heard in the space with us and whose voices perhaps may be missing. This year at Temple Bethel, we are hearing from several voices that we haven't had the opportunity to hear from in a very long time, both in spoken word and in song. The voices of members of the choir are rising again. The voices of congregants sharing English readings, stories, and introductions to the different sections of the services are all being woven together to enrich the fabric that is Temple Bethel at its best. To each and every one of you, thank you for showing up and offering your voices to this heavenly choir that we are recreating here today. Each one of us is important, created in the divine image, and essential to our vibrant community at Temple Bethel. The past lives on within each of us, and one of the ways that we are able to recreate and reactivate memory and effectively mihaye metim, or bring the dead to life again, is through music. One soul who we recall through music this year is that of our congregation's beloved Chazan Emeritus Sidney Rabinowitz of blessed memory, who passed away during the past year since our last high holidays. We hold him close to our hearts, particularly when the choir sings and when davening together the treasured melodies of Temple Bethel's past. Every year, right before the high holiday season, he would call to wish me a Shana Tova, along with the strength of body, voice, and spirit to lead the congregation. I miss those annual calls, but I still feel his presence here with us. He will forever be part of the musical tapestry of memory, tradition, and kavanah that we weave together at Temple Bethel. Music is a powerful spiritual force that connects us with fellow journeyers, helping us to meet both the beauty and the pain of living. In Jewish practice, we have access to thousands of years of profound wisdom and experience every time that we gather together and dial in to prayer. When we daven with intention and seek understanding, we can encounter guidance to inform our senses of feeling, knowing, and belonging in both the present moment and in relationship with our ancestors, Lidor Vador. This past summer, during a morning Shacharit service at the Jewish Collaborative Songwriting Retreat, I experienced a moment of profound presence and understanding. During the Amidah that morning, as we were chanting the Avot prayer, with a deliberate effort to include the Imahot, to include our mothers, I suddenly became aware of the spiritual presence of two women in my peripheral space. They stood there crying out to me through thousands of years of history, pleading, "What about us? We were there too." And as I tuned in more deliberately, I became aware that these two women calling out from the Metzar, or the narrow place, were unmistakably Zilpah and Bila. For those less familiar, Zilpah and Bila were the maids of Rachel and Leah, but another way of looking at it is that they were the property of Rachel and Leah. We were taught that in an effort to continue to produce children, both Rachel and Leah gave their maids to their husband Jacob so as to create additional offspring. While Leah was the biological mother of 6 sons and a daughter Dinah, Rachel birthed 2 sons, while Zilpah and Bila also bore Jacob 2 sons each. Zilpah and Bila's sons went on to become the leaders of 4 of our 12 tribes of Israel: Dan, Naphtali, Asher, and Gad. And yet, here we were leaning into our sacred davening moment of connection with our ancestors, and in our current practice of tefillah, these mothers had been nearly forgotten. In this mystical summer moment, they were reaching through time and space and asking for their voices to be heard, remembered, and included. And I share this story with you because in any room or conversation or moment shared, there are always voices that are included in the narrative that we tell, and there are those that are excluded. I'm reminded of the lyric from the Broadway show Hamilton: "Who lives, who dies, who tells your story?" Here at Temple Bethel, we're striving to create an inclusive space where all voices can be heard and everyone can feel safe and encouraged to show up in the fullness of their humanity. In this moment, I encourage us to tune in and pay attention to whose voices are heard and whose voices might be missing from the spaces and the circles that we regularly occupy. Think for a moment of your own lives. Who haven't you heard from in a while? Who always reaches out to check in? Who keeps their mouth shut at the family table so as not to rock the boat? And who tends to monopolize the conversation, speaking endlessly without taking a breath? That's me. To whose perspectives do you give airtime, and who do you immediately squelch? Well, perhaps it's time to bury a grudge. Pick up the phone and call the person that we haven't spoken with in years, and offer the gift of our sacred acknowledgement that despite disagreements, we share an important thread of connection. Perhaps it's time to reach across the aisle and seek to listen with the goal of understanding, rather than merely hearing a narrative we've already ascribed to those with whom we do not agree. As we move together through increasingly turbulent times, pondering these questions with an open and honest heart will lead us to build the kind of connections that we hope will honor and recognize the divine spark in all of humanity. And while this might seem like a call to look externally for excluded voices in our midst, it's also an invitation to come home to ourselves. For it isn't only the voices of others that are often missing, but the voices and aspects of ourselves that we silence and we stifle. Yom Kippur presents us with this sacred opportunity to come face to face with all the beautiful, messy, quirky aspects of self that make us complicated and multidimensional human beings. And somewhere within each of us is an inner child waiting to be acknowledged and celebrated for the fullness and embraced by our adult selves in love. When we begin the work of Tikkun Olam by working first on hearing ourselves and tending to the still small voice within, we instantly impact everything in the world around us. I can't single-handedly change the omission that excludes Zilpa and Bila from our collective davening. But I can offer a tikkun of repair by including the word imotenu, our mothers, as frequently as possible in our liturgy. This little word offers the opportunity to call in the presence of Zilpa, Bila, and many of the other unnamed mothers who played a role in the shaping of the Jewish people, allowing us to arrive in this present moment today. As I take on the work of deep listening, I invite others to join me, and I hope that together we can make space in our hearts and our sanctuaries for more forgotten and omitted voices to be heard. I pray that we can continue the inner and outer work to build the Temple Beth of our dreams, where every person who desires to belong feels welcome, respected, remembered, and included. As we prepare to step into the next moment of prayer with Hineini, Here I Am, in which the cantor traditionally accepts the role as Shaliach Tzibur to offer prayers on behalf of the congregation, I extend to you the opportunity to claim this moment with me. I invite you to look within and welcome the tender, vulnerable, alienated parts of yourselves to be fully present with us in this sacred congregation. Let us arrive together in fullness, in imperfection, and multifaceted beauty, diverse in experience, and united in our shared Judaism and love. Let all of our voices soar along with the members of the choir in the aisles as they help us take the first step by answering the call in collective unison of mind, body, and soul. Hineini, I am here.